Right. One day I'll make these transitions not awkward, but
Yeah, maybe like a countdown or
something.
something, like an
No.
actual show.
No, I'm going to wait every week until you're taking a drink out of a water bottle and be like, welcome to the show.
Well, I do that. I do that throughout the show, so I can't really fault you for it. My mouth always gets dry, and because I talk too much.
Well, yeah.
Even for a podcast.
We figured that out
much.
last week, but then, like, what I didn't figure out was that your audio level was so low that nobody could hear you talking. So that will get fixed. I'm in the process.
With your OBS
that's a lot
studio.
more. I know. I don't know what this audio monitor thing, what it's good for. If it like shows the audio levels, and you're like, yeah, it looks they're both coming up to the same level. And it's like, just kidding.
You like listen to music or watch YouTube while I'm talking, and like that's what's giving you like giving you the positive meter.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Video games.
How's it going with video games, Steve?
I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to the industry for like the last 3 years, so I'm a little behind on things.
How's business going?
Well,
the profit's up for video games right now.
See, there's this guy running for local government in a local government position, and he believes this thing, but can you believe that he believes that thing? I don't believe that thing. I think it's terrible.
I'm going to make a provocative headline.
This has been Local Politics by Njoystic. No, I've been playing more Bloodborn. The last thing that I did, like of note, like the last major milestone was defeat. What's her name? Vicar Amelia. Is Vicar right, or is it something else? Amelia. Bishop Amelia. Something Amelia.
I think it's Vicar.
Yeah, but
Vicar.
So far, that has been the easiest fight. Now I did summon Alfred, I think, whoever the summon was that was there. Not Alfred. It's like I can't get all these names.
I can tell you I didn't summon
Henrik. Maybe it might have been Hunter Henrik for that one. But I beat it on my first try, and she's just all her attacks were pretty telegraphed and pretty slow and pretty easy to interrupt. So I don't know that I would have even needed the summon, but I just kind of came across it as I was making my way towards the boss fight, and so I thought I'll go ahead and summon this guy.
Yeah, she's one of the few bosses that I would say is slow. Like most of the other bosses have at least some series of attacks that are really fast, and
like her only hook was that like she can heal herself, but it was easy to interrupt because it
like if you weren't leveling up your any of your damage dealers, it might be a problem, but by that point you should easily be a high enough level to just shut that shit down.
Yep. And I was. But it was a cool fight. I loved the atmosphere. I loved her character.
That's the thing. Like, there's not too many fights in there that I'm like, well, that sucked. That was just a shit fight.
The ones that I don't like are not the boss fights. They're the hunters, the other hunters that have turned.
Oh, the hunters are motherfuckers, man. And it doesn't get easier. Some of the hunter fights, like, I had to fucking completely cheese by, like, there's one way later in the game that, like, he's at the end of a bridge, and I would just like trigger him and then like run back, and like he could only get so far away from the bridge before he has to go back, and then I would just like keep using like a heavy stab. And
that's a classic Dark Souls like tactic though,
because he had like a fucking whip or something, and he knew how to use it, and he was
he's
like
got whip.
Like when I don't have the ability to like roll to his side because we're on a bridge, like fuck that. But the problem is back in the room before, like you go across the bridge, but back in the room before is a bunch of spiders who I ran past. So I had to like be careful about like
not aggroing them.
Get away from him, but don't get caught by spiders.
Which is that I'm surprised that if it doesn't like still haunt your dreams, because I know how much you love spiders, and then frustrating fights.
Well, there's a fucking giant spider just before that who I had to do the same tactic. But not because the spider was that hard, but just because I was so fucking scared of it.
Yeah.
That I just I had to get it trapped in a door, and it still almost killed me. So So
Great game though, and
yeah,
like I say after that, I did. There was like two hunters that are like down a path to the left of Vicar Amelia's fight, and I took them out, and they were actually relatively easy if you could separate them. Like if you didn't know that, I didn't know they were there originally, but the best tactic in that game is if you find yourself like you walk into something and you're like, oh shit, run away. Like there's no shame in that. And once I de-aggroed them, I was able to just aggro one at a time and take them out. But and then the dude we were talking about last week with the Gatling gun on in Old Yarnum,
yeah,
I had read that like, oh, if there's different ways to deal with them that are like cheesy, but if you have a blunderbuss, you run up and like run halfway to him and immediately shoot him twice and it'll knock him off the ledge. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try that. So I run up and I shoot him once and he steps back. I'm like, all right. I go to shoot again and he like rolls towards me. I'm like, well, fuck, the fight's on. And so it was just like a mad like me dodging him dodging me until the idiot jumped off the roof. Like he went to dodge one of my shots or stabs or something, and he literally just like sidestepped right off the roof. I was like, well, that takes care of that. But
yeah, that's when you don't have to work that hard for a
especially when like now I don't
victory.
even have to feel bad about it because like at first I tried to like cheese the fight, but then I didn't, and then he did it for me. Like it wasn't I didn't take advantage of some like glitch or positioning. I mean, I was honestly fighting him and he rolled right off the roof.
And those games like they whoop your ass so much that you feel like, well, no, that's fair because the environment kills me so many
I was going to say
times.
it's like I've done the same thing 18 times by now, so like haha. But
yeah.
so that's mostly what I've been playing. The new PlayStation Plus games came out yesterday. And PlayStation 4s are, I think there's a third one that I don't know anything about, but the two that I downloaded were the Tearaway Unfolded, and I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, and Disc Jammers. And that one I did have a chance
It's just Disc Jam.
Oh, just Jam? I thought it was Jammers. I don't know
I think
why.
it's just Disc Jam.
Anyway, it's it's basically like ultimate frisbee tennis. We talked about it, like I said, last week a little bit. And I can't decide if I like it or not. Like, it's not terrible, but I don't know that it's deep enough. You know, people were saying, oh, it's, you know, fast-paced competitive multiplayer. It'll be the next Rocket League. And it's like, granted that Rocket League, at least especially at first, there was really one thing you did. You hit a ball into a goal with a car. But it was a bigger arena with like 3-on-3 for the main mode, and it was just more dynamic. This is just like Mario Tennis or I think there's like a Hot Shots Tennis or something like that, like an arcadey tennis, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't see it being as deep or as engaging as something like Rocket League. That said, I played like 18 matches last night. I lost my first one and won the next 17. So I feel like a god at it. Like, and people were getting
really good.
People were getting so mad. It's funny because it's I can tell everybody that I played hadn't played it before. It had a beta weekend or something, but I know that won't last. Like as people get like familiar with the game, and the last two people I played before we had to leave because we went out last night. But the last two people like actually gave me a challenge. Everybody else I was basically sweeping. And then the people started to seem to like get it down a little bit better, and I was like, oh, but I still didn't lose. But it doesn't track your win-loss record, which pisses me off because it's like the one game that I've got an awesome win-loss record, but there's nowhere to like show it off.
Yeah,
so, I don't know if you've checked it out yet at all.
No, I haven't. Truth be told, I unplugged my PS4 and plugged in my Wii U for the first time in forever.
And had a very acceptable reason for that, though.
Yeah. Zelda Breath of the Wild is amazing. And it's like, I'm trying like really hard as I'm playing it to not like, cause I've seen people like, I almost feel like you shouldn't be able to review a Zelda game until like it's been a month since you played it. Cause when you're in the moment of a Zelda game, like if it's a good one, you're going to just be like, oh, it's the best Zelda game yet, you know, because you're just caught up in the hype of it.
Right, because it's the only Zelda game to be released this year. Like,
right, it's the only Zelda game you're playing right now. And I'm trying really hard to not make any, like, declarative statements about like where it stands, but it's definitely a contender for best in the series. Like I'm not, I need time away from it, I think, to really make a judgment. But um, like right now, I'm putting it up there with Ocarina and A Link Between Worlds. I know people like A Link to the Past more than any of them, but
I don't know. It's the farther we get from that, the more I'm seeing that change. Like my generation, for the longest time, it was always the best Zelda games Link to the Past, and now I'm seeing a lot more split between that and some of the other.
I think it's just a generational thing. Like for some people, like the Super Nintendo is just it's sacred. And for someone like me, I had a Super Nintendo as a kid, but I didn't have much on it. I only had like NBA Jam and like Mario World.
He's on fire.
Like literally 2 games growing up for that thing. And then I was just always playing an NES or something. I get it. If you played A Link to the Past when it first came out, that was probably incredible.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is because it's a great game, but then you get that one thing that's unfair for any other Zelda game to ever come out after it is like the nostalgia.
And I'm not so unaware that like I think like my feelings about Ocarina of Time are any different. Like from a technical standpoint, like there have been plenty of Zelda games that mechanically have been much better than Ocarina of Time. But that was like my first real Zelda game, so that's just always going to have this really special place. And even with that in mind, A Link Between Worlds, like I'm like, I haven't felt this way about a Zelda game since Ocarina of Time, where like the feeling when you first go into like Hyrule Field and just like you're in this world and you don't. Like there is some sort of guide to like where you could go, but like the game is even more open than Ocarina of Time of just like, look, go wherever the fuck you want. You might not live. In fact, you definitely won't.
It seems like even if you go where you're like quote unquote supposed to go, you probably won't live. Like,
well, combat in this game is fucking punishing.
Yeah.
At first, it is so hard because you can't take a hit. And you think Zelda combat has been notoriously easy the last few games. Like there's not ever been much of a challenge in Zelda games as far as fighting's concerned. But this one, like it's mechanically similar, but enemies just do so much damage and the timings to like dodge are so specific. And since you're just starting out, you have no real fucking armor. So like there's so much shit that can just one shot you anyway. So like you just fighting basic moblins, it's like 2 hits and you're done. So it's kind of this weird thing where it's like it's almost not worth fighting things in the beginning.
It's Zelda Souls.
Unless you have to. I mean, and not even Zelda Souls, because you can get around a lot of this shit.
Right.
But you until you invest in better armor and upgrade it a little bit, like when you can finally take a hit, that's when I started like, because at first I was like, this combat kind of sucks because it's just punishing. There's no clear openings. Like enemies they telegraph their attacks, but not as much as like a Dark Souls where there's a clear point to parry or something. Like it's something you have to learn, and in order to learn it, you have to be able to take a hit, and you can't do that for a pretty long time. So yeah, it's really tough.
I like all the dynamic things that happen. Like I've seen where people, because one of the early techniques I've seen people like fall back on is just rolling the bombs at the. You say they're called moblets or whatever, moblins.
Moblins, yeah. And I'm not sure if that's like there's so many different fucking monsters in that game. I lose track of their names, but moblins are always like the generic goblins.
Right. So one of the techniques I've always seen is like getting them to chase you and then dropping a bomb at the last, like holding it until it's about to explode and then drop it so that they run into the explosion.
Well, that's not in this one because your bombs are. It's kind of an interesting change when you start the game out. There isn't much of a tutorial, except that the game gives you, like, you have to go to these first places to get all your abilities, basically all these magic abilities, and one of them is your bomb. And you don't have like a quantity of bombs,
Right.
and they don't set off like bombs. You throw them, and then you hit the button again to trigger them, which is pretty neat. Which means you can time your explosion. Because like if you throw a bomb into like a camp of fucking enemies, they'll go check it out. So if you can wait a little bit, and they'll all come and see what the fuck just landed.
Now, when you hit
there.
the button, does it explode immediately, or does it do that thing where it kind of like flap? Well, then this person must have just like been outsmarted, because I watched them like drop a bomb and then the enemy kicked it back at them and they blew themselves up.
Yeah, they probably just timed it like wrong.
But that was good, and of course there's a lot of funny like deaths, like the lightning strike thing we talked about last week. But
and lightning storms fucking suck.
They just kind of blow in out of nowhere then, or is it like certain zones?
Certain regions will have lightning storms. Like it's a dynamic weather system, and it's kind of cool, but most of the time for me, it's been a real pain in the ass. Because if it's raining, you can't climb up vertical surfaces. Like in this game, you can climb up almost anything if you have the stamina for it, which is kind of another thing you have to. I had to make a conscious effort to put upgrades into my stamina just so I could really get around the way I wanted to. But if it's raining, you're fucked. Yeah, so like you could be midway up a goddamn giant side of a canyon, and then like just rain starts, and then you're plummeting.
Yeah, well, that's like real hiking. If storm blows in while you're hiking, you're done. You might as well just like
but it's not so fun. Like if it just killed me, it would be one thing. But you climb towers in this game, like other open world games, and that expands your map. But it doesn't give you icons. It just shows you what the actual region is. And you still have to go out and find the shit in it.
Like once you find it, do you finally get an icon? Or because I've been reading a lot about like community-driven like maps online where they're like people are collaborating to.
Yeah, like it. Well, so like you get fast travel points, but they're all these shrines, and the shrines are like basically puzzles that would otherwise be in dungeons. But these shrines are just all over the place. So when you find them, that's a fast travel point, and those are usually near other landmarks. So if there's a town nearby, there's usually a shrine right by it, so you can get there quickly. So it's pretty smartly designed, and the shrine puzzles, for the most part, have been some of the best I've played in a Zelda game. There was one the other night that was fucking miserable, just because it was like this game seems to like golf a lot. So a lot of puzzles involve.
It makes sense that Link would want to hit the links, like.
Right. There's one that's literally just a Goron in a cannon, or in a canyon. He has basically carved out a giant golf hole that he wants you to play on. But in one of these puzzles, like the common thing is there's an object in front of you. It's either like a ball or a boulder or something, and you use your stop time effect on it. And you saw a clip of somebody doing this, I think you retweeted it, where you stop time on the thing and then you hit it a bunch, and that builds up its kinetic energy, and once the time stop effect goes away, it launches in a direction, whatever direction you're hitting in. And the amount of precision required for this one particular puzzle was so fucking stupid.
I was going to say, that sounds like a lot of trial and error.
Most of the time it's not, because most of the time it's not like it's not so picky about it. Like like if you don't get it in one hit, usually you'll get another shot, or there's a lot of breathing room to like retry. But this one was so specific, and it still degrades your weapons. So if you lose all your fucking weapons, you're fucked. Like you can't finish it, and I have to like reload a save. That's another thing that's different. Like they changed how saves work, so it's not the 3 file thing. It's like it's more a traditional game where like it's constantly auto saving, and then you have your own manual save you can keep track of if you want. So So that was annoying, but most of them have been pretty interesting, and just using all these powers that the game hands you at the beginning of the game. And I don't know how many hours I've been putting into this game, but I'm still finding new ways to combine the powers and solve these puzzles. And it's really crazy. Like, you stop time, you have another ability that's like, it's magnetic. So if there's like a chest in the water, like, you can't dive in this game, but if there's a chest in the water, you can use your magnet to pull it out. You also have the ability to create ice platforms like right away, and you have your bombs, and just like combining all these things in really, really crazy ways, and letting the player just sort of explore and figure this stuff out without having constant fucking characters be like, Link, you should try this. And there's almost no help. And that's what's cool about this game, is it almost seems like a complete like flip from the direction they seem to be going with.
Then how do you know what to do? Like, because if somebody says, Link, you need to go talk to the mayor, and then on my way to the mayor, somebody stops me that I don't even go out of my way to talk to and says, hey, you should go see the mayor.
Hey, the mayor's here.
How do I know I need to see the mayor? Like,
right. Yeah, and that's an interesting thing about this game, is like, in terms of like what you're supposed to do versus what you actually do. Like, I'm not playing it like some other people are, where, like, I know Andrew, our good cynical buddy on Twitter,
play critically.
Is playing. Yeah. He's been streaming it, and I know he has like, there's a mode where you can turn all the HUD options off and like all the directions and stuff, and you'll just see your hearts. And people really like to play that way and just explore, and I don't blame them. But I do want to be able to move on to another game sometime in the next fucking year. Right. So I'm keeping the HUD shit on.
It's not like there's other games that have come out that are good.
Right. This year is fucked up, dude. Like, it's so... I can't remember a start of a year like this. And I've been following video games for a long time. But anyway, so I have all the icons up, but I still... Like, you just hit points where it's like... All right, well, I have some side quests. I have, some of these main quests, but I really want to see what the fuck is over there. Because there's always landmarks. This world is so well crafted that, like, in some ways it really shits on, like, things that Skyrim started, where it's like, we were kind of joking about, like, the idea of them selling a game on, see that mountain? You can go to that mountain.
Right.
Because other games have been doing that for years, but you actually want to go to these mountains because they're unique and there's shit there.
And it's funny because, in fairness, Skyrim was relatively like new to that at the time, and at the time we thought it was cool. But we talked about it a couple weeks ago because I reinstalled the PC version, and it's like, yeah, you can go anywhere, but it's all the fucking same. It's like.
Yeah, like, it's the same dungeons, like, you climb one mountain in Skyrim, you've pretty much climbed them all.
Right.
And this one, the mountains are unique. And honestly, most of the mountains I can't fucking get to, because you need to wear warm clothes, and you need to, like, on top of wearing warm clothes, you need to eat a lot of shit that will, like, boost your, like, cold resistance or your heat resistance.
Which, I will call the game out on that. That's bullshit, because hot, spicy food actually cools your body down. It doesn't keep you warm because it makes you sweat, and then the sweat cools you. So, like, that, in and of itself, the Zelda can only get maybe 6 out of 10 because that is not accurate.
Not realistic.
Right.
Well, I'll get into some of the negatives here because there are only a few. I guess I should mention, like, technically speaking, the frame rate stuff is pretty choppy. It's amazing they made this game for the Wii U.
I was gonna say,
the Switch, but it's and from what I've seen and heard, the Switch and the Wii U versions have the same sort of technical frame rate issues.
Okay. That's what I was going to ask. I didn't know if you'd like followed that. So it's not a
like a Wii U thing. It's a fucked up thing, especially and that's kind of the messed up thing while I'm playing this is, like, I love it. But I keep thinking, like, how great this would be if it was on PS4 and Nintendo didn't have to... Like, if these guys didn't have to work around these shitty fucking hardware builds that just like if they could just put it
But
on a
it's
machine and
Nintendo.
not
You know what
worry
they
about
would
that.
do is they'd move it to PS4 and then push that machine too far because just that's the thing is Nintendo just doesn't like.
I can't roll the controller around like a ball. Well, this will never work
So,
for Zelda. Yeah, and I mean, like, and that's not to say I don't want Nintendo to exist and keep making their weird
no,
consoles. It's just when it's something like this and it's such a huge world and it's so fun to explore, and you know all it would take is just slightly better hardware to get it to run better. That like, because the Wii U honestly is only, I think, like only a step above the 360. So it's like it's not like it was never a huge powerhouse, and it
no,
looks like
yeah.
the Switch isn't much of one either.
But on the flip side, it does gain some ground in that it's only running things at 720p. So
Yeah,
that's the thing with the PlayStation hardware, say PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One and Scorpio when it comes out, or the Pro. You know, it's more beefy, but it also is pushing out 4K in some instances.
yeah. Well, this and but you kind of once again, it's like, man, I would love like because this game is gorgeous in a lot of ways. Like the art style is amazing. It's really
And they kind
it's
of tailor
really
it for
Miyazaki
that, like yeah,
kind of.
and with those visuals, you can do it at a lower resolution, and it's that blurry, pixely a little bit. I'm not a huge resolution snob anyway, but that effect isn't as terrible because it kind of fits the art style. But
Right.
I think that's where you're going with it. It makes you wonder, like, well, what if it was running at?
Like if it just what if it didn't have these frame drops? What if what if the visuals were a little more clear? It really makes you wonder, like, if Nintendo went the route of Sega, would it really be the worst thing? But I mean, once again, I'm not. There's something appealing about Nintendo doing their weird shit that baffles me.
Well, the other thing that it does is it kind of inspires and pushes the other companies. So, like,
yeah, but just also, in some ways, a Zelda game wouldn't be a Zelda game on a PS4.
well, certainly, yeah.
Because when I'm fucking doing a puzzle in one of these shrines and it requires me rotating the Wii U tablet in my hand, like not even just like kind of tilting it, like I'm flipping the controller around and shit to get a fucking ball in a maze to go where I need it to go. Like that shit is weird and kind of dumb, but also kind of neat. And I know like no other like system would be able to like cater to these weird fucking ideas. But technically it's fine. I would say if you already have a Wii U, you don't need to make the upgrade to the Switch version. The Wii U version is perfectly fine from what I've played. If you don't have a Wii U, then yeah, get a Switch. And
well, especially since I was just looking at it because it's like, well, man, it's tempting. It's so hard to not have these systems and see people talking about Zelda, especially as a Zelda fan. And so I'm like, well, with the Switch out, I'll look at the Wii. They're like the same damn price still. Like, It wouldn't make sense to run out.
Well, the Wii U is going to be fucking even harder and probably will go up in price because they're not making it anymore.
Right. And I think that's the issue. Is the only Wii U's that I found were used at like GameStop for $300. And it's like, or you could buy a Switch for $300. And it's like, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I'm lucky enough that I have a Wii U, and so I can hold off on the Switch for a little while. But I would say this is a system seller quality game. I don't ever like it when it's just one game, but this is a fucking amazing one.
Well, anyway, and their lineup, their coming lineup looks pretty. I don't want to say pretty good. It looks good for a Nintendo. Like you still worry about the overall number of games, but there's a handful that will probably be like just as cool.
It looks good for someone who didn't have a Wii U, which is admittedly more people than people who have one.
True.
But between this Mario Kart 8, Splatoon 2, and they'll end the year with Mario Odyssey. I assume that'll be their last big one for the launch year. That's a pretty solid lineup, except if you already have Mario Kart and you've already played Splatoon.
Yeah.
You know, like there's not a lot to get excited for if you've already been keeping up with Nintendo shit. But once again, that's not a huge percentage. I heard the launch sales for the Switch were really good.
Yeah, I should have wrote it down because I can never remember it. But I've had a couple people that I've talked to that I would describe as like even like the most casual of casual gamers talking about like, man, I'd really love to buy a Switch, and I'm like, wow, I'm surprised you've even heard of the Switch.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's great for Nintendo.
Well, and I'm surprised to see the response to like the portability side of it because like, and I mean it won't do anything for me because I don't live a lifestyle that demands like portable games. Like I like a lot of shit on the 3DS, but I don't take it anywhere. You know, so like that stuff's kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see if like that sticks with people or right now it's just kind of a novelty. I always said the first hurdle will be when these things start getting fucking stolen from people. That'll decide how well the portability works.
Although I wonder how easy it is to track them because I know Nintendo still does a lot of stuff with like account locking but I guess the Switch itself isn't locked to your account anymore like the Wii U, right?
Well, the Wii U is not locked to your account either.
I thought it was.
You can like you don't have to. Maybe there is an option, but I know mine. I just fucking turn it on, and like if for some reason I had my Wii U with me, if someone took it, they would just have a Wii U then. Like they would have my brother and mine. Like
but
they would have
what I mean is like
there,
the eShop account. Like if they wanted to try to get their own so they could buy games, like I don't know if you can switch like you must be able to because you can buy them used.
Well, that's the 3DS.
Yeah.
Like it's one account. The Wii U, it's attached to your Me, which is attached to an account. But if my brother buys something on the Wii U, it's different than if I buy something on my Wii U. Like it's because it's two different accounts. Anyway, I was going to talk about some of the
negatives.
So I talked about weather cycles, how the rain stopping you is a bitch. Certain regions have those thunderstorms, and they happen all the fucking time. So there is a in-game clock, sort of, that's like constantly moving 5 minutes at a time. And if you have the HUD activated, you can see like kind of the weather coming up. And it's just like every other block of weather is a fucking thunderstorm. And that shit sucks because you have to take all the fucking metal off of you.
What about like your weapons and stuff? Like you have to...
it's always your weapons, shields, bow. If it's not made of wood, you got to take it off. Because you'll fucking die.
Yep.
And it'll be immediate.
Which is exactly how lightning works in the real life too, kids. Like if you're outside and if you have metal fillings in your teeth, you're fucked.
Yeah. So stay indoors. Play Zelda. But I did hear a cool thing about this where if you come across a camp of enemies and they'll like at night they'll sleep and stuff, and if there's a thunderstorm going on, you can sneak into their camp and drop a shield in their camp and back out, and the lightning will fucking hit them. And I haven't tried that, but I really want to now.
Yes, that sounds... we were all questioning how like a kind of a more open world Bethesda-y Zelda would work, and it sounds awesome.
Well, that's what's so cool about it is like it is an open world game. You can tell that like they saw other open world games and drew design ideas from it. But this is like the open world game I kind of forgot I always wanted, which is an open world game full of Zelda shit to do. Like just like there's no, it's not checkbox based, like that thing of like other open world games where it's like climb these 5 towers, and you're just crossing shit off your to-do list. Like this is stuff like I want to do. And if it's something that seems like busy work, like I never I never go out of my way to do it. It's just it's gonna like happen on its own. Like it's stuff like there was a guy who was like, I need 30 bundles of wood and 3,000 rupees, and I'll give you a house. And I'm like, well, I get bundles of wood all the time, and I get rupees all the time, so I'll just come back when I have that shit. And it took me no time at all to be back and come back and get a fucking house.
Now you have a mortgage, sucker. Link's grown up.
I paid for it all up front, man. No mortgage.
He's financially smart then. Whatever.
Wood is worth a lot, apparently. Well, but yeah, so just having all this shit to do that is all like quality sort of Zelda gameplay. Like it's really amazing, and it's that much more motivating because it's like, yeah, all these areas you can go to are unique and interesting, but there's also a chance that, and this is what happened to me, there's also a chance that you see some fucking gloomy ass forest in the distance, you go in and you're like, oh shit, this is the Lost Woods. No one told you to go there. You just saw it from a tower and you fucking flew over there. And you go through it, and oh shit, I found the Master Sword.
Right. I saw you tweet that, and I was like, that's like every kid that grew up playing Zelda's fantasies, because you find it, but like organically. Like that's always because Link to the Past is my favorite Zelda, and because like we talked about earlier, it was like my early. I played it when it was. I don't want to say like it first came out. I wasn't like waiting in line to buy it on launch day or anything, but back in its when it naturally came out. That scene in A Link to the Past where you go through the Lost Woods and you pull it from the pedestal, it's like the sword in the stone moment, and like the clouds clear and the music plays and the animals come out, and like that's so in every Zelda game since, like getting the Master Sword is always my favorite, one of my favorite moments.
I should put a caveat there. I found the Master Sword. I'm not able to pull it out yet, but it's not attached to the story when you can pull it out. It's attached to your health upgrades. Like you have to have a certain amount of health to get it, because how they have it in this game is like it literally kills you trying to pull it out.
So like it's Trump care. If you're not already healthy enough, you can't get the protection that political.
And that kind of ties into this game's story, which I'm enjoying a lot. For like, because it is a Zelda story, but it's also a very different take on one, because you are Link, and you're already like the hero in this game, but you've been asleep for 100 years, and so your power's just gone. Like
that sounds about right, because if I had it saved like Hyrule, the first thing I would do is sleep for like 100 years. Like,
well, here's the thing: you didn't save Hyrule.
Oh,
like
failed.
And that's that's what I like about this story, is because it's like you're recovering, like you're trying to make right a failure that happened a century ago.
I see. Well, but that holds true too, because if I succeed or fail, the first thing I would do is take a long ass nap. So yeah.
Well, and the story doesn't it pieces itself together. Like one of your main missions is to like recover your memories. And that's where you get the cutscenes and stuff. And this game does have voice acting in it for the first time in those cutscenes. Link doesn't talk, thank God, because the voice acting's pretty terrible. Like Zelda has the most like annoying cliche princess voice that I've probably ever been depicted. But she's an interesting character. Like it's just the dialogue's delivered very poorly, I think. But she's an interesting character because like the cutscenes show that like she's also like the reason Ganon was able to take over Hyrule Castle, which is like that's just how it is at the beginning of the game, and you can go right to Hyrule Castle if you want, but you'll probably just fucking get killed a bunch of times and it's not worth it. But like this whole game is kind of like it's about what if the typical Zelda prophecy like failed? Like what if Zelda didn't have the power to stop
Steve was the one controlling Link?
Yeah. What if Link couldn't defeat Ganon? Like what if what if all this shit went wrong? And like the cutscenes reveal things about like how Zelda like she kind of hates Link. Like they have a weird relationship where
Like hates, or she just like resents the fact that he wasn't able to.
like she resents him because like his part of the prophecy is like it's fulfilled. Like in these cutscenes, he already has the Master Sword. Everyone already recognizes him as like the champion of Hyrule. He's, you know, this sacred knight of Hyrule, and like she hasn't found her power yet. Like she hasn't like so they talk about it in a cutscene where one of the characters is like, well, he's just a reminder of her failure. So but they're also like cutscenes where they're friends. Like, you know, I mean, he's charged with like guarding her when she goes out and leaves the kingdom, but like they're like looking at shit and the wildlife and talking about stuff. Like there's this, it's a really interesting kind of relationship that they haven't ever really told in a Zelda game before. Because like,
well, yeah, any other Zelda game that I've played, which admittedly is very few comparatively, but like you don't even see Princess Zelda until like you've saved the day. So
yeah, Zelda's always either a distant figure, or in the case of Skyward Sword, you're just your best friends already, and everything's fine. And she's not really Zelda yet, you know, right. Like proper. Like this is an interesting story. Like I'm surprised how much I'm like digging it, and that's a really cool way to tell it because it's a main quest. But it doesn't tell you where to go. Like you have this photo album that Zelda left you, and you have to go to these spots. And you have to look at the photos, see landmarks. So you see, like, okay, there's Hyrule Castle. So I need to go to there in relation to Hyrule Castle, and that's where the spot will be, and that's where I'll get that next memory and tell the story. And that's encouraging exploration for the sake of exploration, because it unfolds the story, but you don't have to like play the main story. Like I've only done one dungeon so far.
Now, if you stumble across one of these, like, can you just like stumble across the memory spot without like having seen it in the, like if you just happened to go there, would it trigger?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, well, here's the thing. Like you go to the photo album, and if you're making a conscious effort, you go to that spot. But there have been a couple that I've just found because they're like, it's a spot that will like kind of, like just be kind of magically glowing, so you know it's like, oh, I can recall a memory here. And if you don't want to follow the photo album, there's a character who he travels around, and if you talk to him, you can show him a random picture, and he'll be like, oh, that's in the woods, sort of southeast from here.
So they give you like the ability to not really cheat, but like to be more.
Yeah, they'll narrow it down for you.
Yeah.
But to me, it's also kind of fun, like, to just know, like, well, I know roughly where it's at, so I'm going to head in that direction. And then, like, just, this game's just full of shit you find along the way. So, like, by the time I finally find the recall spot, I'm like, oh, yeah, I was doing that. You know, I got distracted by fucking
I forgot what I was doing, but now I recall.
Yeah, and just, you know, so it's an interesting reward, and it's like self-rewarding because the exploration's so fun. But once again, that's a positive. So let's talk about the like real bitch of the game is the inventory, I think. The weapon durability stuff is honestly, it's as kind of annoying as I thought it sounded. Especially like it's annoying in the beginning because your shit's just breaking and you don't know if you're equipped for a fight. But then you start getting better weapons, but they also have a really limited durability, and it makes fighting just not rewarding most of the time because like these enemies will respawn after a few days, which they've handled pretty interestingly, where like they call it the blood moon rises, and like the world just like on those nights the world starts turning red, and you just like you feel like fucking evil coming out of the ground, and then like a quick cutscene happens and it's like, oh shit, everything I fucking killed is back. And what's fucked up about that is the first time it happened to me, I was in the middle of an enemy camp, and I had just killed all the enemies. And then just like the fucking everything started turning red and shit. I'm like, what's going on? And then they're all fucking back. And I'm right in the middle of them. So that was pretty messed up. But the problem with the weapon durability thing is like you don't want to break good weapons for the sake of getting bad ones. And a lot of the fights, you're just getting shit weapons.
Right.
So like you kind of have to get in this rhythm. Like you can expand your inventory to hold more weapons and stuff, but it's never enough. Like I've done it a few times now, and it doesn't feel like enough.
And can you like repair your weapons or
some of them? Special weapons can be repaired, but the one I have right now that can be repaired is not a particularly great weapon, and it requires a lot of shit to repair it. So I'm not like, it's not worth it to me. So you kind of get in this rhythm of like, well, here I'm going to just, make 2 spots for kind of shittier weapons. And then I'm going to fight enemies with these. When they break, I pick up the enemy's weapon if I can and just use that, and just, like 2 slots just sort of devoted to like improv and like a backup.
Right.
But the problem is like when you find better weapons, you have to like throw shit away all the time because you usually have a maxed out inventory. This is easy for the weapons because whatever weapon you have equipped, you can hit like the right shoulder button and just quickly throw it away. But for like when bows and stuff are, obsolete, bows and shields, you have to go into the menu and manually drop something because there's no quick way to throw those away. And it's like, it's all stuff that like, if they hadn't moved this game onto the Switch, they would have just put this stuff on the touchpad and it would have been way easier. But because they moved it to the Switch, they took it out of the Wii U version too. So you can't, there are no touchscreen benefits to this game, which makes the menu stuff incredibly tedious.
Yeah.
So it's kind of annoying, but you get a rhythm for it. And you start knowing that like I'm going to save my good weapons for real fights. And you know what real fights will be because, they'll always be a lot tougher than just the typical moblin camp. And cooking kind of goes into the inventory problems too, where it's like, so I talked about it on Twitter, but I have it written down here. In my mind, cooking should be a really easy mechanic, especially in this game, because that's the only way you're getting hearts. It's, you don't find hearts anymore. You cook and you heal through that. You heal through like the food you find like if you can eat apples and shit and those will heal you without having to cook them. But to get a real health boost, you need to cook meals. And I think it should be as simple as going up to a pot to cook in and putting shit in a pot. And in this game, they think you should go to your inventory, select the ingredients one by one that you want to hold. You have to physically hold them, then go to the pot and put them in the pot. And it doesn't remember your recipes, and it doesn't, like, you can't find recipes, and there's no quick way to recreate meals you've made before. So it's just like, it's a fucking huge pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Like, and so you kind of, like, I always just do it in bulk, where it's like, all right, I don't need to heal now, but I have a little break where I'll just cook a bunch of shit, and, then I should be good for whatever comes up.
It's always good to have homework in your video game, so.
Yeah, it's just, I feel like, I'm not against like the idea of like meals being the way you heal in this game, but it's one of those things where it's like, there are quicker and easier ways to do this. Like even if they want you to experiment with ingredients, once I make something that's good, let me remember how I did that. Cause now I have a bunch of meals that like, well, fuck, I don't know what went into that. I know I have the ingredients, but I don't want to dick around for like 10 hours trying to remember it. And I'm not writing it down by hand. Like somebody fucking suggested that in forums is like, we are not savages. You know,
But
fucking
that goes back to the whole like Fez and Souls, like, oh, it's cool because it's a community effort.
sure, yeah, the online Breath of the Wild cookbook. No thanks. But yeah, that's really, you get over that stuff, but it's kind of, you like, you can tell like Nintendo is like they're experimenting with a lot of things in this game, and most of it works, but I feel like those things don't quite figure it out, and it's that type of stuff that kind of hurts the game. And I think it's that type of stuff that, you know, I mean, with the amount of fucking time I put into the game, I could easily see myself saying it's the best Zelda game I've played. But like I said, I want to hold off on that. But it could go the other way where I just remember, like, yeah, the inventory stuff was a pain in the ass, and, you know, it ran kind of choppy, and like it had a lot of cool shit in it, but, you know, cooking was awful. So those are the negatives. I could only get it to those three. The truth is, like, I do what I need to do during the day, but then like come 8, 9 o'clock at night, I'm playing that game and I don't play until my controller's dead. And that's, I could just plug it in and keep going, but I know that's like, all right, this is the world telling me you need to stop now or you will stop living.
Right.
So
maybe that's why they have. Well, I keep thinking the Switch battery life, but you're not on the Switch. You're on Wii U.
Yeah. The Wii U battery life's pretty good. But yeah, so I did the first dungeon, and that wasn't very elaborate. Like, it wasn't like this sprawling dungeon you would think of for like a Zelda game. It was a mechanical elephant, and which sounds weird, and it is, but there was kind of a neat Shadow of the Colossus vibe to it, where like when you go to like the dungeon map screen, you can actually control like where the trunk is for the elephant, so like it can like tip back or move forward. And so when you get on the trunk, you move the trunk, and that can get you to a higher level of the map. And it's like, I thought that was really cool, and I'm curious to see what the other dungeons do with that sort of idea. So yeah, Breath of the Wild is amazing. If you have a Wii U, play it. If not, you know, start making plans to get a Switch, because I think, you know, I'm kind of with everyone else where it's like there's not a lot that I can say definitively is a must-play game, but this is one of them.
Yeah.
So,
but that does put you in kind of an awkward spot if you don't have a Wii U or a Switch right now, and if you wanted to get something now, it's like, well, I could get the Switch, but this is really like the one like must-have game for it. But then you can't, because it's not backwards compatible. So you can't play all the other games for the Wii. But if you get the Wii U now, like I said, I think that'd be stupid because it costs about the same or more as the used price. You know, the used market demands.
At least if you got a Switch, you can play Mario.
Well, and there will be stuff coming out. Like the Wii U is probably pretty much done. Like I'm sure they'll have a few of these, but they're going to focus on the Switch.
There's a lot of great shit on the Wii U, and I hate that. Like, I hate that it's toast. But yeah, if you're gonna get a console to play Zelda, you know, you should get a Switch now. But if you already have a Wii U, that version is fine. My dogs I have no idea what my dogs are doing.
Oh, I hear them now. I didn't at first, but now I do.
Yeah, she's out of her mind. She almost killed herself.
Yeah, I saw that. Like my
my
dog's kind of done that though when she's had the leash attached, and she'll get excited and go running, and it's like, wait, and then.
Well, she we use a long leash on her because she's stupid and she doesn't listen to us. So we have to usually, when we let her out in the backyard, we have to go out and grab her. And as soon as I clipped it on her and opened the door, she didn't let me get the leash out of the way in time and just fucking bolted because there was something out there she needed to bark at. And it like the fucking chain part like hooked into the goddamn door and fucking ripped her back. And like she came back into the house, but she like laid down immediately and was just fucked up. And we had to like call the vet. And I mean, I think she just hurt herself and got scared, but she popped back up, but I was just like, you know what, this really would be the appropriate way for this story to end with me and you, dog. Like, just you did something retarded, and I hate myself for it.
Yeah, like you feel, but there was nothing right. That's happened twice with me. Say our leash, we use just a regular short, like a leash you'd walk your dog in the park on, but it's got, we're relatively responsible dog owners, and it's got one of those little things that you clip to it that you carry like the waste bags in, so you can actually pick up after your dog. And once she did that, where you open the door, but she didn't wait for it to be fully open, and took off running, and the leash would have got underneath the door, but that thing caught on it. And then she did that once jumping out of my car when I opened the door to let her out. But we use like one of those like chest harnesses instead of just the collar thing. So I mean that kind of spreads that force around, but it's like, ooh, don't do that.
Yeah, and maybe we should look into that for her, but so far, like I was telling my mom about it and like how fucking bad I felt, and she's like, this dog is so stupid, something's gonna happen to her. And like you can't protect her from everything. Like she is the type of dog who will go and like stick her entire head in a beehive if you let her. So it's
like after the bees have stung her, it's like
yeah, and be like, what the fuck? Why'd they sting me? What's up? And so yeah, that was fun, and more importantly, it took away from Zelda. So
yeah, so that makes you mad. That's what.
Yeah.
And I saw that she's
do it in private,
or at least do it when there's not big video game releases out, which won't be for a while now because like everything just keeps coming out.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I realized how fucked up of a way I look at life is like as far as like life milestones, like I don't think about it in terms of like birthdays and stuff really. Like age doesn't mean that much to me. But I think about it in terms of game releases. So I'm like, wow, I got to play Breath of the Wild. I did it. That's huge.
Here lies Ben Matlock. And instead of like birth, Zelda. Yeah, well, no, it'll just say instead of like from, whenever it'll say from classic Super NES Zelda, to Zelda 476.
Yeah, and that's a fucked up way to look at it. But like I say that to myself, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good. Like if I died, today, it's like, well,
we're getting to the point
for the worst Zeldas.
We're getting to the point where there's a whole generation of gamers that really could, instead of using age, like mark their like time on Earth with like Call of Duty releases.
Fucking the age of 360 and dank memes. Yeah, but I also, I made another. So I got fucking Zelda, which is just massive.
But you were playing something else. I thought I can't remember what. Oh, Horizon.
Right.
Yeah.
I haven't gone back to that yet. But my plan was, as soon as I'm done with Zelda, I'll go back to Horizon. Like, I don't want to divide my time between two massive open world games.
And you were really enjoying Horizon from like when we last talked about it. And I don't know that you've really played it since because Zelda came out. But
yeah, I haven't. Because I'm still early on enough in Horizon that I can kind of come back to it and not feel totally lost.
Yes.
But like that game's great, and it does things like you couldn't do. Like a lot of people are, because it's easy to compare it to Zelda because they're both open world games. But the way Zelda approaches open world design and the way Horizon does are pretty different. And Horizon's a little more Far Cry, and you couldn't do a Far Cry game with a Zelda style, I don't think, because Zelda has its own quality in terms of puzzles and motivation of exploring the world, and it's just a different type of open world game. So I'm looking forward to going back to it, but I'm retarded, so I fucking bought Nier also because I heard that was also really good.
Yeah, that's been now. There's been a lot more split opinion on Nier than on like Zelda and Horizon, but most of the people that like aren't just like completely opposed to that type of game have been getting it pretty high marks.
I mean, the reviews have it like, admittedly, it doesn't have as many reviews as Zelda or Horizon yet, but Game Rankings has it at a 90.52%. So that's, after 22 reviews, that's pretty good. Now I got the Steam version, which won't be out for another 9 days.
Yeah, 17th, I think.
Yeah, so who's to say that port might suck? My computer might not run it especially well. So like I'm looking.
I'm a little surprised you didn't get the PS4 version.
It was cheaper on PC, and I have enough shit to play. So if I can't play Nier right away, it won't break my heart. So but I'm looking, and like my video card's a little bit old, so I'm looking at upgrading that, but I'll probably have to wait until I find a job.
Yeah, that makes it easier to do that stuff for sure.
Yeah,
but I don't know. You played the demo, like sneak peek, whatever they called it, didn't you?
Yeah, and it was pretty fun. It was really interesting how it kind of meshes like Platinum sort of Bayonetta action with like almost shoot 'em up mechanics, where you have this robot who's just constantly shooting while you're doing shit with two giant swords. I don't have much familiarity with the first Nier game. I didn't play it. I didn't follow it at all.
But you liked Bayonetta, and that's what I've been hearing a lot of comparisons to. Same team, so.
Well, I mean, I like Bayonetta. I hated fucking Metal Gear Rising, and I've heard comparisons to both, so I'm like,
From what I've seen of it, which admittedly is just I've watched Let's Plays of the demo, I wouldn't draw the comparison to Metal Gear Rising. I mean, I don't know, but
it's I've heard people compare it to that. What I played felt more like kind of a Bayonetta feel than what I got from Metal Gear, but who knows? It
was one when they revealed it. Like I said, I have no familiarity with the first one. I've heard people I knew it was like a cult classic, that there was. Like, it wasn't a real big, game that everybody had played and everybody loved, but I knew there was some, really dedicated fans that loved it. But that's about it. I don't even really know what kind of game it is. But then when they announced this one, it just looked cool. So it had my attention. And then when I watched the, stuff after the demo came out, I think it's not that I don't think I would like the game. I think it's just not what I was in the mood for. At the time I watched the videos, which automatically sets in my mind, I don't really want it. So maybe some point in the future I'll play it. I do have it on my GameFly queue. That was one of the things I've tweeted about it, but I completely never even considered that aspect of going back, because I've been PC gaming for the last 3 years, really 2 or 3 years. And then finally joined the modern world with the PlayStation 4, and it's wait, I can rent games now. So when these big releases come out, there was a lot of them I wasn't playing, because it's it's $60, Steam. I can't rent a Steam game, and it's I just don't really can't justify spending $60 on it. But now it's it just came in the mail today. I've got Ghost Recon Wildlands that I can check out without paying $60 for it.
Which I heard that game is pretty rough.
People seem to like it, but it's cool despite its shortcomings. But it sounds like it's even really only redeemable if you have friends that you can play with, because it's very co-op oriented. And I know a couple people that have it, so hopefully I'll be able to hook up with them and check it out. But
more troubling to me than the criticisms I've heard towards it is the praise, because it all sounds kind of like how people sounded when they were first playing The Division.
Yeah.
Of just that thing, when you're playing with people, it's fine. And then okay, what happens when the people go away in a month?
Yeah. Or For Honor. Maybe my tone was wrong. I was being too overtly cynical. But that game, that came out and everybody was all psyched about it. Oh, this is so cool. And I'm no, it's not. I didn't like it at all. Not that there weren't. I don't want to demean the story behind it. I know there was that article that went out about the designer, and it was his dream game. He had always wanted to make it, and that's cool. Glad he got to. And it's got some really cool design ideas, but I'm I can't see. I'm if you were asked me, Steve, should I spend $60 on For Honor? I would flat out say no. But everybody was so hype about it, and they're oh, this is cool. I can't wait. less than half a week later, nobody's talking about it, and it's like,
well, there's just it's and it's hard to hold that against any particular game really, because like I watched people stream For Honor and it looked cool. Not enough for me for $60, but it was like,
it's a good rental game. That's what's awesome about renting games. Like it's
well, I mean, like, and I'm also thinking about it like, well, maybe next winter sale there'll be a good deal on it,
and like, the good thing there is it's heavily dependent. Well, I was going to say it's heavily dependent on that game is 100%. It has a single player story. I don't know what the point of playing it would be, but the multiplayer is really the draw there. But when you hit, if in a year or so, or maybe two, whenever, Ubisoft's usually pretty good about that. When it hits a winter sale for $10-15, or maybe even $5, that whatever, you're going to get that influx of players. So if you can get it, if it gets to that point where it's cheap enough, that'd be perfectly.
Yeah, it just seemed overpriced, and it's a very limited type of game for what has been the most insane start of a year that I've ever seen.
And in fairness to it, I think that's part of the reason why people quit talking about it right away, because it's like, oh, 400, it's really cool. Zelda. No, that's basically the only thing people have been talking about in my feeds.
For Honor is Horizon Zelda. Just fucking people are ping pong.
Mass Effect comes out in like 2 weeks.
Like I joked about being fucking irresponsible about buying Nier, but I allocated what my budget is right now. Like I knew I had money.
You had another game in you.
Yeah, I had enough money for either Nier or Mass Effect. I could probably get both if I really wanted to, but I just sort of and I was going back and forth, but I was like, you know what? After Zelda, after Horizon, I'm not going to need to jump into a Mass Effect game like right after all that.
Right. There's very little chance that you'll be done with both Zelda and Horizon by the time Mass Effect launches on the 21st. Yeah.
But seriously, and you have to make decisions when in 3 months you get like a crazy amount of releases, and apparently all of them are pretty stellar. You have to decide what is going to be put on hold, and I think Mass Effect would be a good one. Like maybe, kind of in the middle of summer when there's not much going on, like that might be a good game for me to go to. But
Mass Effect seems like one that there's certain games that you almost need. I mean, even if you don't need it, you really benefit from playing it like while it's got all that buzz. Like, I mean, Zelda, it helps that right now everybody's glowing about Zelda, and that adds to it. I'm not saying it certainly wouldn't be a bad game without that, but if you get to play it like as everybody else is experiencing it too, that does add to it. Mass Effect seems like one that you'd be perfectly safe playing in 2 or 3 months and not really lose anything there.
Well, like a good Mass Effect, like me and my friend, like I played it years after all my friends had played them.
Right.
And they were still just as eager to talk about it because it was a great story, great characters, and there's no sure thing here that this next game is going to have.
No, in fact, I've been seeing a lot of people that are like voicing a little bit of doubt with Andromeda, and I know it's a lot of new. You're losing the Commander Shepard. You're going on to same universe, new storyline. I think there's a lot of new people behind the game too. Like, I know there's still a ton of the people that were in the original trilogy working on it, like the biggest names. They're still there, but yeah, I mean, you're kind of at that unknown transition that a lot of long run series go through, where it's like, will this be able to live up to the previous ones?
Yeah, and that's like that's the big concern. Like, honestly, what they've shown of the game, like the gameplay looks better than anything, and it just looks better in context with the rest of Mass Effect, where like here you're like fucking rocket boosting around and shit, and there's a lot more going on, a lot more powers available. Like the shooting seems pretty fun, but like nothing about like here's your crew. Like none of the crew looks interesting to me. Like, and I'm not saying they can't be. I'm just saying, after 3 games hanging out with my boy Garrus, I don't really fucking which one of you guys is going to be the next Garrus? Probably none of you.
Garrus Jr. They're gonna throw that one out there. Like, here's his long
Garrus
lost.
Jr. He'll probably be terrible. Fucking.
But that's like one of the first games I've pre-ordered in forever. But not because I'm like the world's biggest Mass Effect fan, but because I felt like it would be far enough away from like at least let me get deep into Bloodborn before it hit. Like,
yeah,
and then it's one of the ones that I felt like, knock on, this is fake particle board wood in my cheap ass desk, but I almost want to say like a can't miss in terms of it might not be great, it could be great, but I don't think it'll be terrible. Like, it's one of those games that I felt safe enough spending money on.
I think it depends on how much of a BioWare fan you are. Like, because I know there are people out there who's just like, yeah, it's not as good as like Mass Effect 2, but I still like Dragon Age. It's like they like that type of storytelling, and more power to them. But we also see there's a lot of people who are like, if you're not going to make a fucking excellent story, don't make anything at all. Yeah. And that's a position too, I guess. But
those are the same people that Call of Duty comes out and they're like, oh, that single player story is awesome. It's like, no, but what? But anyway, yeah, and that's kind of part of what I mean when I say I felt like it's a can't miss. Like I say, I can't miss. I could be very well see myself playing it and being like, meh. But I just don't see myself playing it and be like, I hate this game. I'm so mad I spent money on it. But part of that goes that I've not finished either of the trilogies, but I didn't say loved. I really liked Mass Effect 1 and 2. Didn't play 3. I really liked Dragon Age and Dragon Age Origins. I didn't play Inquisition. But out of those 6 games, the 4 I played, I liked. They're not my favorite games. I don't live and breathe BioWare. I don't, I don't get into it from like the fan fiction, and like I don't know the extended universe and like all that stuff. But I like them. They're solid games.
I don't know why you would need a fan fiction. Those games basically are fan fiction. Like, and what if Shepard fucked the hippo alien? Like,
what do you mean? What if? You mean
like it'll happen?
Yeah, right.
Like, it's Shepard. He's a fucking playboy, man. But whatever.
So but that'll be like my next big one. But I've got the Ghost Recon just came today, and I got noticed that it shipped like yesterday, so I should probably get it tomorrow. But Final Fantasy 15 is also on its way.
That's the other thing, is like why I'm kind of like, you know what? I really should play this fucking game that's been sitting on my PS4 since Christmas. Right. So hopefully after Horizon, we'll see if I can actually run near in a way that's acceptable. If not, I'll just have that game for a while, I guess. And then, whatever comes of that, it'll either be before or after Nier I finally want to play FF15. I put it off, though, because I keep reading shit that like, oh, we're going to update this story thing. It's like, then fuck, why'd you release the game if you weren't done?
Right. Like, and that's what, I haven't been following it that close because I didn't expect to be able to play it so soon. But again, that's one of the advantages of renting it. It's like I can play it and then be like, I'll send it back for now and then re-rent it when things come out. But
it's just like, if it was like story DLC or something, then whatever, I'm used to that. But they're like, no, we know people hate this chapter of the game, so we're fixing it. It's like, fuck. But you're not fixing it for 2 months, so if I play it now, I'm going to fucking have to play it bad.
And that would suck too if you didn't have a ton of other stuff to play, but that'll make it pretty easy for you to put that on the back burner until it...
Right. Well, I think I think they said it's like late this month that they'll do those major updates, but I don't know. It's a weird feeling right now where it's like, I'm proud I kind of knew what my budget would be, and I handled it so, but this is the first time where it's like, wow, I don't have time. I don't have time for all this shit. I can't remember the first time where by March I'm like, slow the fuck down. I can't play everything.
But see, that I feel like that's setting us up for a huge disappointment this fall, because we'll be like, man, like what's become like.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Pre-fall.
I don't have anything. Well, I mean, like, we don't know when Cuphead's coming out. There's always hope. But I don't have anything after August, which is Middle Earth. Shadow of War.
See, and I hadn't really like that's one of those things that I've just started like seeing like the phrase Shadow of War, and at first I saw it and I have to say I hate that name. I think
it's a terrible name.
And that's why when I first saw it, I thought it was kind of a joke or kind of one of those Facebook game things that get advertised where it's
totally
like Call of War, whatever.
Yeah, it sounds like the cell phone game they would release with Shadow of Mordor.
Right. But and then I started like seeing like a screenshot or something. I'm like, wait, whatever this is looks cool. So I didn't realize until you just said it there that it was indeed tied to the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yeah.
So is it basically like Shadow of Mordor 2? Like, is it the follow up to that?
It's Shadow of Mordor 2.
Okay,
Same
cool.
character, same mechanics. They just released a gameplay video today, and I don't know, like the way they showed it off. It almost looked like there wasn't an open world to it, which to me is great because I fucking hated getting around in that world. But maybe there is, but it seemed like they were emphasizing a lot of like, well, here's what we added to the Nemesis system. And a big part of it is getting these, high-ranking orc generals on your side. And then like you sort of lead these battles, like you go to take over these huge fortresses and stuff, and it's like these really intense battles where it's like you send your big guy to break down the gate, but then like he breaks down the gate, but they pour oil on him and then like fucking light him on fire, and it's like if you can find that gameplay video, like it just came out today, but you should watch it. It seems pretty neat.
Yeah, I was trying to load it on GameSpot, but their video loader's not working. So you suck, GameSpot, even though you're an actual publication and you don't actually suck, but so like in some ways it does look like more of the same, but that's fine if they clean up some of that stuff and then just like it's more of Shadow of Mordor, then I'm fine with that. I thought that game got a little overrated, but I enjoyed it, and I thought the Nemesis system was a really cool way to add some stakes to like a combat system that had become kind of tired, which was the kind of that Batman Arkham sort of thing. Yeah. But now it's like, well, I don't want to kill this guy yet. Like I'll kill all the people around him, but then I want this guy on my side, or I have to figure out a way to kill him because he has, he's good at defending against melee. So I need to find a way around that. And so maybe I'll like lure him over here to like where I can drop this explosive barrel on him or something, and it's like they did a really amazing thing with that first game, and I'd like to see them continue it. I wish the name was better. I know that it's just
like Wraith of War, something that stands out. Shadow of War, you could put that at the end of fucking Call of Duty and it would be a typical title, like just something to stand out. And Shadow of Mordor 2 would be better because that's what everyone knows the first game as. They don't know it as Middle Earth. Like, so I don't know why they're keeping that.
Well, but they've done that with a handful of games, like even that aren't related, that are really called like Middle Earth something.
Yeah, so Middle Earth, Shadow of Mordor 2. Well, why the fuck not? Just numbers.
Right.
You don't have to gild the lily, but that's all I have. Like August 22nd, that's the latest release I have that has a date.
Well, see, the weirdest thing to me that happened, because we've been doing this since 2010. At least I started the blog then. I think we started the podcast 2011, but like just months apart. And way back in those olden times, like it was just known that like fall was the big release schedule, and then we got to see games start moving to, and part of it was like companies trying to get away from the other big releases, and part of it was big releases getting delayed into the beginning of the following year.
Right.
But all of a sudden, like within a year or two, beginning, first quarter became another big release window. And now it's kind of settled to where it's like first quarter is like big release for like new games, and then fall is just big release for like the next Call of Duty, like the sequential like annual games.
Yeah. And I was kind of thinking about this in terms of like the Switch, because I thought March was a pretty random like time to launch a system.
Right.
But if you're launching it with Zelda and you're getting the hype kind of around Zelda, you're kind of it's taking a chance, but you're kind of doubling down on your launch here in an interesting way where it's like, so, it has this pretty positive launch, with a, at least one must-have game on the system. And then like they can go into the holidays and kind of revamp it because now there will be more people who are like, oh, well, I want to Switch now and I want to play Zelda.
That's what I was going to say. Barring like some Samsung-esque, like they start exploding in people's hands. I see, the people that'll get it now. You'll also kind of have, some people, it's before like Easter and stuff, kind of get presents and do that stuff around, spring. But then you'll have like the big boat boost will be Christmas again.
Right.
So like you said, like now they're launching without being around all the other, like they're not fighting other toys and stuff for Christmas attention, but they'll still get that second boost.
Yeah. And like I think that's actually pretty smart.
That's something earlier in chat. Mirage Leonardo was talking about Switch and the Switch sales, and that's specifically what it talked about. Is just hoping to get one for Christmas, and it's like the sales numbers look from what I've seen, and I'm no business analyst, and I haven't like dug into them, but it sounds like it's launched pretty strong. And then you get that. I'm most interested like end of the year when we get to first quarter next year, seeing what the Switch install base will be like.
Yeah, because I was kind of, I made no secret that I've been kind of skeptical of the Switch after their last reveal thing. But even I was kind of like, and I can play Zelda, but I was just sort of like, if depending where I'm at financially, I could see myself grabbing one around fall. Yeah. Like it's a matter, like at first I was like, well, I probably won't get one until, at least another year. But it's like, there's, an interesting deal out there or something, I could see myself picking one up. And, that makes their time of release actually make a little bit of sense. What's fucked up is every other good game decided to come out around the same time. And I don't know how the fuck, like Night in the Woods. I want to play that game because I heard it was good, and like that's a $20 fucking downloadable title, and I'm like I don't have time.
Yeah,
I don't have time for
and that's the kicker. Even if you're fortunate enough, like it's tax season, so I think they're banking on that. A lot of people are getting money back, and that's they can use that to buy games.
That's what I fucking did.
But no matter how much money you have or don't have, we all have the same amount of limited time. I guess there's some people that don't have to work that can sit around and play video games all day. I mean, I don't know anybody like that, but and at the end of the day, you can only play, like, even if you could buy every game that comes out, you can only play so many games. And they're all like, play me right now. And it's not just that it's like, oh, these handful of games have come out and they're pretty good. It's like every game that's come out this month, like every one that's got attention, it's been like,
yeah, everyone is like game of the year contenders, and it's like, fuck. Like we're 3 months in. I already have, like 4 fucking games on my plate that are game of the year contenders. It's like, I can't do it.
And it would be easy to be like, oh, everybody's just caught up in this game release hype and they're being hyperbolic. But no, like you get into these games, you're like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah, they're really fun.
And then here's Steve, the idiot back here playing Bloodborn for the first time. It's like 4 years old.
There's nothing idiotic about playing Bloodborn.
No, but it's just funny because I'm in the same boat where I'm like, this game is awesome. And everybody's just like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know.
But
I can't wait for you to be done with it.
That's probably
going to how fucking weird it is.
It's probably going to turn into a Souls-esque, a Dark Souls 1 thing where it's like I'll finish it in 4 years, but we'll see.
I mean, I will say one thing about Bloodborne. I don't know if you have the DLC or not.
Yeah, it came with the old Hunters.
So you got like the Game of the Year edition or whatever.
Yeah, the digital deluxe, I think they called it, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever. There is a clear point in that game where, like, honestly, after the Bloodstarved Beast, nothing was that hard again. So, like, if you're past him, then you are, like, not that shit won't give you problems, but it won't be fucking.
Which is
murderous.
funny because he's, I'm very, very early into the, if, Vicar Amelia, there's got to be a bunch of bosses left because I've only fought like 4. But yeah, that Bloodstar Beast. And it's funny because the first 2 times I played it, I almost beat it. And you were like, oh, it's the worst fight. And I'm like, yeah, right. You just suck. No, that fight fucking sucked. Like, yeah. I mean, it literally.
Well, it's not fucking. When you get him low, because that shit happened to me multiple times, where you get him low and then he just and fucking starts killing you.
Yeah, and then I said, well, I'm gonna summon Alfred. I think's the one for that one. He's got that Kirkhammer or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna summon. And you're like, oh, don't be a bit. I always summon NPCs because I don't. That doesn't feel as cheaty to me as summoning another player to help you. It's built in. It's a mechanic of the game. He was fucking worthless. He like all the other fights.
Just sometimes it just makes bosses harder.
Well, so the problem with that boss is, like you say, in phase 2 and then worse in phase 3. Phase 3 is worse because it's just like automatic constant area of effect toxicity. So like the NPCs, like even if he lasted that long, it's like, yeah, no, you're dead.
Yeah.
And then part of it was when I did finally beat it, I went and I had a ton of souls from exploring. I'm like, I need to. That's a game that gets real easy to kind of forget to level up your character. Since you have to like go back specifically and talk to the doll. Like, souls, you can do it at any bonfire. So every time I'd get to a bonfire, I'd be like, doop, level up. But I leveled up a little bit, and in that game, in Bloodborne, it seems like the discrete like. Going from strength 20 to strength 21 makes a more noticeable difference than it did to me in Dark Souls. Like, just a point here or there in your stats makes a bigger difference, I felt.
Yeah, but it also, it's kind of like, I don't know. Like, it seems more like based off of kind of that same Dark Souls thing where it's like you put a point in and it might not mean anything, but if you put another point in, then that's a huge jump.
Yeah, there's like
you sort of start seeing your specking in a certain way.
Yeah. So it's partially that, and also like doing the blood gems or whatever in your weapons and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that all helped, but no, that fight was a bitch, and I used all my fire paper like in the first 2 fights and all my antidotes, and it's like, well, now I'm just gonna have to deal with being poisoned. Cool.
Awesome.
And at one point, like I wasn't paying attention close enough to really get the mechanica, and I like it a lot. But the blood vials, like I always felt like once you got to my caps at the 20 that you start at, I know you can raise it, but once you got to 20, I felt like every time I picked up a blood vial, it was waste. But I was like, what's this little icon next to it? And then I realized that means it's sending it to your storehouse.
Yeah. It took me a while to figure that out. Because I was like, why do I not have full things now that I've died? Yeah. And then I was like, because I ran out in the storehouse.
And that's what that fucker did. That's the first time I've been out of blood vials and silver bullets. I literally had to go farm shit so I could beat that jerk. Mm-hmm. But no, But it's funny because as hard as it was, I didn't really hate the fight. It was just hard.
It was hard as shit. He is a goddamn monster.
Well, and the thing is, if you were a better player than me, he's you can repost him, and not every boss you can, but he was very hard. Well, and I think that's where maybe having
his repost timing is really fucked though.
Well, like, when it gets to the first phase was pretty easy. Second phase wasn't terrible, but by the third phase he's added so many different attacks and they're fast, and then he frenzies, and if you fuck up, if you're sitting there trying to repost and you get caught in that one that he just like goes batshit, you're done. Like the attack itself almost kills you, but it poisons you. So like the little bit of health you may be lucky enough to have left, it's going to tick off in a half a second anyway. But no, it was cool. And like I said, the Vicar Amelia fight was really easy, but it was so atmospheric and so like that thing that From Software does so well, where it's like you feel triumphant and it was a boss that's trying to kill you and it's big and foreboding, but there's also this like kind of like gloomy sadness to it.
Yeah.
Like in those games, you never really feel like a hero. And to add on top of it, you never really save the day. So, but I don't know how this one ends. I'm not like in like super nuclear underground bunker mode to avoid spoilers. It's 3 years old, but I'm also not going out of my way to, like, there's a bunch of lore videos that I'd love to watch, but I don't want to yet because I don't want them to give something away that like I didn't want to see. But
trying to find because I kept this running diary. Like I'm trying to remember because I remember writing vividly about the fucking Bloodstar Beast.
And the kicker on top of all that is that's an optional boss fight. But once you find it, you're that's like the one thing that I'm like you on. You find it, you're not walking away without taking him down. Like I knew it was optional. I'm like, no, I cannot like not do this.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I found it. Well, yeah, I forgot I was tweeting as I was fighting that boss. And I quoted it. The Bloodstar Beast can suck my asshole. That was the first one. Starting always really cordially.
That's before you even fought him. You just threw that
I
out there.
I already hate him. 2.5 hours and I still couldn't beat that cunt. And now I'm too angry to keep trying. That guy is a bunch of fucking bullshit. So these are my tweets, typically, if you ever want to follow me on Twitter. The guy has an instant death attack and attacks that cause instant poison, and Farnsworth can't fucking aim a fucking pistol for shit. I almost had him so many times, too. I'm ready to cry like a mental patient.
Yeah, like that. I mean, those are the very good summations of the feelings that you get when you're fighting that jerk.
Yeah. And now I'm like remembering. So I guess how I killed him was once I got him really low to the point where he would just ruin your shit, like I just backed off and shot him as much as I could before I had to go in and hit him. So
see, I tried. I had 4 of those like I forget what they're called, something monster blood toxin poison, whatever, the things that attract them. And because you had even mentioned, I think I saw it somewhere else, but you had mentioned like, oh, if you throw that like against a wall, it'll grab his attention and let you go up and like hit on him from behind. And I'm like, well, that sounds like an easy way to beat this fight. What I didn't count on is I had 4 of them and it distracts him for about a half a second. So like,
yeah.
And if I knew the fight, it probably still would have worked, but I wasn't smart enough to save those for phase 3 when you actually need them. And so, like, I burned through them, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting this health down. And it's like, uh-oh, I'm out. Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Yeah,
oh, no.
Wow. I forgot how fucking dramatic this fucking fight went. I can't believe I forgot this. Because now I do remember, and I remember the terror I felt. So, as the monster's health got low, Farnsworth, which if you didn't follow this diary, that was my Bloodborn character, focused on blasting away until the beast charged him. I was about to dodge again when I saw that familiar opening before his attack. Instead of playing it safe and dashing away, I took the shot and it worked. The beast was staggered, but its attack still managed to knock Farnsworth down. It was now a panic-filled dash to get back up. Farnsworth seemed to be moving in slow motion when he just barely got a hold of the beast and smashed his fist inside its skull. He sent the monster sprawling back, and adrenaline left me hammering the trigger in an attempt to fire more shots. Imagine my horror when no shots were coming out of the pistol. Turns out that would not be necessary, though. The creature did not pop back up this time. After 5 hours full of attempts, the beast was finally dead.
And so the one that you reposted him on was your last silver bullet?
That sounds was my like last hit. Yeah. And nice. I was like, and it knocked me down.
Yeah.
And I remember like,
well, it probably applied toxicity too, or slow poison, I think is what is, because by that point, basically you get hit and you're insta poisoned.
Yeah. And I remember like getting up and hitting the critical attack, but thinking that's not enough damage.
Yeah.
And I remember hammering the fucking shot button and not getting it to fire. And I'm like, no, shoot. Oh, man.
I'm curious, what weapon did you start with? Or do you know what you were using at that point?
Work hammer.
Okay. That thing is way too slow for my taste. Like, that because it actually requires skill.
The sword's fine. The Kirk hammer is a great warm-up weapon to the Ludwig greatsword, which is, that is still one of the coolest weapons in any game for me, because you got a normal sword, and then you can combine it with that to get the fuck you chop a giant fucking alien in half blade attached to it. It's a really like all the weapons in that game are really neat, but that was my favorite easily, and I never switched off it through the entire playthrough once I got it.
That's what's interesting about those games is like you really don't have, you find a weapon that everyone's a viable weapon, but
right. But I mean, you want to, once you find the one you like, and I kind of like this more than Dark Souls because every weapon is a viable weapon. Like once you find the one you like, you put points into that one, and you don't feel like you're really wasting your time putting your points into that one, because it's like you might find something that's technically better in terms of stats, but really it's more about how does that weapon feel? Do you like how you fight enemies with it? Do you like the versatility of it? So, man, that was fun. I need to reread that diary.
Maybe that you might uncover some like traumas that you've locked away.
Well, I already did. It doesn't get worse than that. I was fucking shell shocked from that shit. But yeah.
Speak of the devil, Kotaku are my favorite place. Just tweeted about a $600 Bloodborne statue that looks freaking amazing. I'm retweeting it, but anyway. So yeah, Bloodborne disc jam. I don't know why I kept sounding like disc jammers. I could have sworn that's what it was. But you're right.
Because it's based off of Windjammers.
Yeah. Been playing that, and I kind of want to get back to that. That's like one of the few games that was consistently getting my opponents to rage quit, and that's just such a good feeling. And it's like Rocket League in that you can't like directly talk to them, but you have like some preset things that you can say, but you also have a taunt, like you can make your character, you unlock them, but like if you're kicking their butt, you can sure make it known that you're like being a jerk about it. So I like that.
Yeah, but I need to play that too, and it's just,
I think it'd be a fun one for us to stream once.
Yeah, yeah. When I can, because once I'm done with Zelda, that's pretty much the end of the story for the Wii U.
Yeah,
and me, and that's kind of that's a sad thing. But once that's done, I can unhook it and not have to plug it in for a long time. So. But anyway, that's, I don't know what time we're actually at.
We're about at our time, and
all right.
I need to get to the gym so I can be one of those like gross gym guys. Hey, bro, you even lift?
My mom got a new scale, like a weight measurement scale, and like I tried it, and according to the little fucking book that comes with the scale, I'm just like 1 pound under being overweight, and I was really mad to hear that.
Just wait till you get to my mark where you're like, oh, you're 1 pound over being obese, but at least you're not clinically obese. Like,
because I've been exercising and watching my fucking calories, and like it's like, all right, now I'm fucking worse somehow because the new scale says so. Fuck you.
Welcome to getting older. That's how that works. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for those of you that watched and participated in the chat, and we will be back next week with other things to talk, or the same things to talk. I don't know. We'll just be talking.
It'll probably be the same things to talk about.
Yeah.
Except I'll do a 180 on Zelda because I died to a boss.
Fucking game is such bullshit. Yeah, I can't believe they designed a game like that. What are they? Nintendo's dead.
Fucking must dunk it in the toilet.
So bye-bye.
Toodaloo.